You're live. Okay, hey, it's Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres, and I'm here with my lovely wife and confidant, the lovely Miss Jill. All right, so today was a rain day, and I had things set aside to do for the rain. The way I do what I'm doing is if I have a day where I can work outside, I'm outside. But if it's raining, I'm thinking all the time, I will save this job for when it's rainy. So I had some things I wanted to do in the greenhouse today, and I got them done. I feel really good about that. I made another big place to do some planting in it, and had a chance to just have a very relaxing day, rain hitting the top of the roof and all that stuff. Very, very good time. I did make a video today a little bit about the Dalton Township situation, and I think that we'll move to that a little bit later in the hour. We have a few things that we want to discuss farm-wise here today. I did receive this in the mail too. This is kind of cool. This is a T-shirt that my buddy Randy has come up with, and he's selling these. They're available on the Hidden Creek Farm Facebook page, so you can go there and you can order one. I think it's $25. But the whole gist of this is food freedom. That's the whole gist of this. And for those of you that are in the homesteading business or the commercial farming business, it's a very important thing. There's without a doubt some heavy-handed action by state and local government against farmers. And if we stay united and we stick together, we can handle that. But if we're all separated and they pick us off one by one, then it's not good. And I don't want people to think that you're just going to be involved in some sort of lawsuit if you're farming. Quite the contrary, if you're homesteading, the chances are really good that no one's going to even know you're homesteading. And if you are homesteading and you're not doing any commercial business, there really is no avenue for any of these regulators to come in. And if you want to look at this closer, you probably need to download the Bill of Rights, the U.S. Constitution, and specifically look at the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment. And read that. Be sure you are fully aware of what that means, and that is your protection against some of these overzealous agencies that think that they need to have control over what you're doing. Make no mistake, what they do is done under the guise of safety, food safety, but it's really questionable whether they could even ensure food safety with such a small group of people, and the large amount of food operations that are going all the time. They can't be there and they can't look over your shoulder constantly. It's more about control. They want control of the food system, and that's not a good thing. I think we'll be talking about that a little bit later this afternoon. But if you'd like to check out the Hidden Creek Farm Facebook page, by all means, buy a T-shirt, get a couple of these stickers, put one on your vehicle. It's kind of neat when I see somebody else with one of these on their vehicle. Give them a toot. All right. So I'm kind of ready to go here for questions. Jill, do you have any questions for me?
I do.
She does.
Georgia Trucker, I believe it was.
Georgia Trucker.
Trapper. Sorry, Georgia Trapper. Wanted to know.
Georgia Trapper.
Have you ever raised sheep? Why or why not?
All right, yeah. We did raise sheep for a while. And at the time we were doing it, we didn't see a great market for it. And so we did not pursue that. I have some sheep right now, but I got them after a friend of mine passed away in March, and they were her sheep, so now they're my sheep. And I don't plan on being a sheep guy. It's just not something that's ever really appealed to me. I could, I suppose, but with the property that I have and where I live, I don't think the market is there for me. You know, I'm pretty far north. If you're down closer to the cities, or if you're willing to take those sheep down to the cities, then I think you can do pretty well with them. Sheep are a little bit on the difficult side if you haven't tried them. They have a tendency to push fences because they're very well insulated from the fences, and they have a tendency to act sort of like goats, and goats are a real pain, especially if you have a whole bunch of them. Cows, to me, are a lot better. They're a lot more trainable, but I think it's what you get into, you know, and I just never really got into them. I just never did. So I can't really tell you a whole lot about sheep. There's the part of the sheep process too, the shearing that you have to do, and that to me seems like a major hassle. And there's not a real good market for the wool. So I don't know. There you go. But I think they're a tremendous animal to use for grazing. And you know, we talk about grazing and talk about the statement, there ain't no free lunch. Well, that's not true at all, because I grazed my cattle today and I did not pay a penny for, you know, all the pounds of beef that were put on, all the gallons of milk that were put on today. I didn't pay for that because I've got them grazing areas that I cannot cut and bale. I'm grazing them close to the woods. I maintain a corridor around my fields that they can traverse, and they can keep it all nice and trimmed back for me. And I don't pay anything for that. I mean, property taxes and stuff, but if you are smart about grazing, and it really is an art because there's a lot that goes into it, you can feed your animals, even where I live in northern Michigan, for about 6 months of the year for nothing. And what you're doing actually is you're harvesting the sunlight, the air, and the rain, and the whole process of photosynthesis and all that. And right now we're in the spring flush, and stuff is just breaking loose, growing. And then if you want to get really smart, you can grow fields just for your sheep, and you know, graze them correctly so they're just taking the tops off and then they move off of it. And then in a short period of time, you can circle them around and they can hit it again. You know, you don't want them to eat your grasses down to like this, or you're just going to have a bunch of rocks out there after a while. So that's where I am with sheep. I did take a class one time on how to shear sheep, and then after taking the class, I decided I don't like the shear sheep. So there you go.
They are
Don't
tasty.
really like sheep. I don't like eating them.
Oh, we liked them okay. We made sheep dogs.
Sheepdogs, all right. What's nice is when you have a butcher shop on your property and people have animals that they need to unload, you can always kill them and eat them. But these ones I didn't do that because they're a friend of mine's. One of them has passed away, the old one did, but next question, please.
Scott wondered.
This is Ducks and Clucks.
Yep.
Okay. Nice garden, man.
Ah, it
It's
was.
got a good picture of a garden on the tribe. Really nice.
Any thoughts on self-wicking buckets or totes for growing veggies?
Self-wicking?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know anything about that, but I'm assuming that you're talking about a container garden that you probably set in a pan of water, and then it will draw water up from the bottom. It's pretty interesting to me. As a matter of fact, this year I'm going to try again the inverted tomato plants. If you marry that up with drip irrigation, it's kind of the most you're going to do is pick fruit off of it. The last time I did it, I would walk past it and I'd say, "Oh, I got to water that today," and then I'd walk past it again. "Oh, geez, I got to water that today." Then about the fifth time I would walk past it and say, "I got to water that today." Or about the second or third day of doing that, I take a baseball bat to it and I say, "Well, I'm not going to water it anymore." So, things like that are kind of fun to do, but if they take a whole nother, it's like a whole nother thing that you have to do. Like you have to go get a bucket and fill it up with water and then go out there. I'm pretty busy. And what I try to do is I try to make my processes kind of sing together. They're in sync. So I go do this while I'm doing that. I do this while I'm doing that. I do this. I turn this on. I turn this off. And I haven't got to the point where I'm making solar doors to open and close my chicken coop. I got friends that do that. But I do use a lot of drip irrigation to water my animals. Like I'm watering my pigs right now with drip irrigation. And that's where I'm just using a capillary tube to run out there. Very, very cheap to run. I can run it all over the farm for very, very little. If I have a problem and the animals get a hold of it and rip it off, it's not going to cause a flood. So I'm thinking that wicking bucket thing would be, you'd have a big load of water. So maybe you could load the pan that you're going to sit it in, once a week maybe, and then it would be kind of self-watering. It could be a really good thing, especially if you had it near your greenhouse where you have to do watering. Anyway, in my greenhouse over the last couple times that I've worked in there, I've put in my irrigation system, and I have these little sprinklers that I don't have one sitting here, but they're no bigger than that pen, and then they have this capillary tubing going to it, which I have a piece of that capillary tubing. See that? It's 1/4 inch. You can get a roll of this 50 feet for $4. I get this from Home Depot, and then the fittings that will connect this together, you can get them from Dripco Irrigation or Drip Depot. Just put in drip irrigation and you'll find all the fittings that you need. You can get T fittings and straight fittings, and you can get on and off valves. You can get all kinds of little sprinklers, and really cool. Stuff is super tough and super inexpensive. And like this, this piece is an older piece because I don't buy black anymore. So this has got to be 5 years old at least. And this is just a short piece. I don't know what it was from. It just happened to be sitting here. But I've got lots and lots of this stuff. Very, very cheap. Very cheap. So that's my thoughts on that, even though I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but I can kind of surmise that it's something like a time-saving device when it comes to watering a plant.
Have a pertinent question. Did you put a pressure valve in the main supply line?
Yeah, I do. On drip irrigation, if we want to talk drip irrigation and all the different ways you can use it, I marry it up with other systems. All right, so the water system on this farm is about 50 pounds per square inch. 50 to 60, I think. Yeah, and when you're using this stuff, you just don't need that much pressure on it. And I think it's a really good safety feature to knock it down to 25 psi. So there's an inline valve that you can put in there. Thought maybe I had one here. Yeah, I do. How about that? It's an inline valve, and this is a pressure regulator, and it knocks it down. This one, 25 psi. So you just screw this in. That's hose fitting, and that's another hose fitting, and then your water pressure is way down. Where if you have a problem, something pops off, or when this stuff's sitting out in the sun at 60 psi, it has popped off before, and that's when I started putting this in line. So my chicken field where I do all my pastured poultry, all the water that goes out to those chickens goes out through a tube like this. So today, you know how many buckets of water we hauled out there to water the chickens? None. You know how many times they ran out of water? None. You know how many sparrows crapped in their water? None. It all is sealed up with this. Never use a clear line. Always use an opaque line, a black or a brown, or maybe they have green, but I haven't seen it. But always use something that the sun can't get through. You're going to have a big algae build up on the inside, and then all the valves and stuff will get stopped up. For waterers, for our poultry, we use, it's called a Little Giant, and I have videos on that. If you go through this, you can find drip irrigation videos where I show that. And that hangs in the chicken tractor. It's just a little bowl, about like this, and it holds maybe 2-3 cups of water, but it's full. It's constantly filling as the chickens drink out of it. So it's always full. The problem, and the reason why this is so good is because if you have a bucket system out there, we used to have a bucket on each chicken tractor, and then a piece of hose that went down to the bell waterer. They sell those in Farm Tech, but we don't use them anymore, and I don't recommend them. I mean, they worked, but the problem was when that bucket ran out of water, then the waterer ran out of water, and then the chickens freak out when they don't have water. And let's say they go a few hours without water. To them, it's like the rest of their life they're not going to have water. And then when you finally give them water, you have 75 birds in a tractor, all wanting to get a drink at the same time. It's like second graders all wanting to get at the bubbler at the same time. So then you wind up with a bunch of wet birds, and when they're leaning on the waterer won't fill. So they'll stand there all night trying to get a drip, and it will never fill up, right? Because those things work on weight. When they're leaning on that, it will not fill. So if you plumb your waterers in, then it's always there. It's always there. Okay.
Scott also wondered, how safe is the bed cover you use that's biodegradable? Is it made from corn, and where did you purchase it?
Where did you get that?
Yeah, I get it from Johnny's, and
Johnny's.
I'll put a link exactly to it in the show notes when we get all done, Scott. I was just pulled it up, and I'll tell you, because it doesn't say what it says. It's based on, or it's made of plant-based raw material. It's a registered, trademarked thing, so I don't think they're giving up any information too much on it. But I know it works real good. We've used it. This is our 3rd year with it, and it's the only way that I like to garden anymore. And it's never there. By the time we work up the garden in the spring again, there's none left. So it's gone. It biodegrades in and keeps the weeds out during the summer really effectively. So that's what I know. And I'll put a link to the Johnny's website so you can check it out if you check back after the show. And huge shout out to Lone Star.
Hi, Lone Star.
$20 super chat.
Wow. Thanks. Thanks. That's nice. Thanks. Real nice. Who says there ain't no free lunch? Who says there ain't no money in farming? One of these days. We had an interesting conversation this week. As soon as, for those of you that don't know, we are not commercial farmers anymore. And that decision was made last May, a year ago last May. And anyway, we made that decision that we were going to be homesteaders again. And what that really means is that we maintain our own customer base. And anybody that we sell directly to. So there's no third party. We're not selling to a restaurant that's going to process it and sell it to somebody we don't know. We're selling everything direct, or trading, or gifting, or whatever. And what that has done is that makes it converts the farm operation from everything you do is about your bottom line. Which, when you think about that, that's not really good, because you don't take the time to smell the roses. You're like, no, I gotta go, I gotta keep going, and then you find out at the end of the month, wow, you did really good, or you find out at the end of the month, wow, you did really bad, even though you were working. When you don't make dollars and cents your absolute goal, you have a chance to focus more on the process, making the process cleaner, more high speed, more enjoyable. And then, wouldn't you know, it seems to be more profitable. And also, you have time for your friends. You have time for something like this, to just chat about farming, get together with other people that are farming. So, although, we do have to make money to live, if we can just kind of change our mindset a little bit and get away from everything's got to be a bottom line, it's a little hard to explain. I think later today, when we're talking about Hidden Creek, we'll talk a little bit about regulation and contracts and things like that. And that's something that every homesteader needs to know, and kind of how you fit in with your township, and then your county government, and then your state government, and your federal government. You do need to know how that works. Because if you don't know how that works, then you have a tendency to be at the mercy of people who do know how it works. So, another question, please.
Yeah, Scott had another question.
Yes, Scott.
About the bed cover that I'll just answer real quick.
Okay.
He wanted to know, how many months does the cover last before it gets all kinds of holes? Really less durable than the plastic cover that doesn't biodegrade. I don't know what that's called exactly, but
Plastic mulch.
Yeah, plastic mulch. So it does get holes and rips, but it keeps out 90% of the weeds anyway. So you have a fighting chance anyway of getting weeds out of your garden. Some things will push up through. I had a dock plant that pushed up through, which was a surprise. And quack grass is just quack grass. But so it holds up. It'll still be there in the fall. A lot of it'll be ripped and torn, but it'll still be there, still doing its job as best it can. It's not perfect, but it sure does help.
What Jill did this year too, that she's not mentioning here, is she put it down and then she covered it with grass clippings that we collected intentionally. And those grass clippings protect it, but they also sandwich it between the earth and the grass clippings that take on a lot of water, hold a lot of water. So it protects it long enough that you can get kind of a head start on the weeds. Because if you ever notice, once your garden gets really truly established, it has a tendency to suppress the weeds. When it gets way out in front of them, then it'll suppress the weeds.
Yep. And the weeds won't matter to it.
I
So
know.
it's a
Yeah.
win-win. Okay. Brian had a question about pigs. Any tips for a pig that stands at a feeder, tosses all its food onto the ground, and then won't eat it? Bacon?
Yeah, eat it. Oh, it'll eat it. It'll eat it. If you keep putting fresh feed in there, it won't. But take the feed away, take the fresh feed away, and that pig will eat what's on the ground. There's no doubt about that. No doubt. So that's what I would do. Quit, until he's finished up the stuff that's on the ground, don't give him anything else. Just like a kid. And it's not like it's gross or anything. It's pigs.
Pigs aren't that particular.
Yeah, they're not particular.
Ashley wanted to know, when do you recommend planting watermelons and pumpkins?
Oh, ASAP. Get them in. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. There's this kind of notion that whoever gets their stuff in first is going to get it first. That's not always true. If you put a seedling out and you have a very cold spring like we do now. Notice I have a hoodie on right now. It's been raining for a couple of days. It's so wet here in Michigan, you can't believe it. And it's cloud covered. It's pretty cold out right now. When you put a seedling out and it's a harsh environment like that, the seedling has a tendency to say, oh, so this is how it's going to be. And then it programs itself, I guess I'm only going to grow a little bit. As if you planted it at the end of the season. But if you wait until the conditions are nice and mild nights and, then the plant has a tendency to say, okay, let's go for it. And where you can see this is if you monitor your weed growth. Like I have places where in the summertime, my lamb's quarter will grow 6 inches a night. It will really, really go. But the stuff right now is only getting up, about this high, kind of spindly stalks. The stuff that's in the greenhouse, that stuff is up 2 feet and it's got a thick stalk on it like this that is full of juice. So those plants have decided that it's good conditions and they're going to go for it. Some of the stuff that we've put out in the garden since it was put out hasn't moved, in a week because it's just been overcast and, cold. So they may not do very well. It may behoove you to replant them when it does get a little bit nicer. If you notice, at the end of the season, there always seems to be a lot more days in the season than we thought it was going to be. When you have a package of seeds and it says, 93 days, but all of a sudden your stuff is all there in 70 days. Wow, that's pretty good. I think they under-promise and over-deliver a lot of times when it comes to seeds. So when it comes to those root crops, the vine crops, I would wait until it gets nice. Another example is we feed, all kinds of stuff like that to the pigs. So on their fields, we have a lot of volunteer plants that come up. Something's going on. A whole lot of volunteer plants that come up. And some of those in the summertime will run like crazy and we get tons and tons of fruit out of it. So doing it real early is not always the best time to do it. I would wait until it gets nice out and you're done with the cold weather. Yeah. Another question?
Yeah. Oh, Lone Star wanted to know, are you going to patent the chicken tractor plans coming out?
Still waiting on those. No, I'm not going to patent it. No, I'm not going to patent it. I've thought about doing a video on it though, and then sell the video. And I, there's a lot more to it. Like if I just gave you the plans, you might not really know, well, why did he do it like this? But when I started doing pastured poultry, I read Joel Salatin's book, and he said in the book, yeah, you guys are going to try things on your own. Go ahead. Try things on your own. And he would even say, you know, some of this stuff, it's not going to work. Like, I think he cautioned against making a really big chicken tractor. Well, I knew better than him, and so I did. We made this thing we called the Ark. And it was designed that, the chickens could all get in there. There was plenty of room. It was mounted on these great big skids. And the chickens could go out during the day and they could forage, you know, and it would be really great. And then at night they'd go back in and all the manure would fall through the floor. And there was a good water system on it, plenty of feed and stuff. The only thing is when you moved it, the chickens stayed where it was. I don't know why, but they did. Even if you moved it 5 feet, they would stay where it was. So it never worked. And, you know, if you're going to herd 400 chickens in, it just didn't, it didn't work out. And then they weren't protected either. So that was back in the days before we had our guardian dogs, and we were losing chickens at night. Really horrible, just horrible. So this new chicken tractor that I'm kicking around the idea of building, it's going to be the same dimensions as the one that I use right now, the ones that I used, which you can see those on my videos too. But I'm looking for more durability and greater ease in moving, right? I want to be able to just pick it up one hand, drag it and set it down, and I also want to prevent running chickens over. I've already killed 2 this year from running them over. Yeah. So, and you know, we don't need a chicken tractor that will prevent animals from getting into it, because I have the dogs that patrol that area. And if you are good about keeping your chickens fed, they will not jump out. So it doesn't have to be closed in. Just looking to streamline things, make it a little bit better every time.
What about the new chicken coop?
Oh, the chicken coop.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got great plan for chicken coop. Like I tried the Salatin thing where we had the mobile chicken coop for our layers. Now, layer chickens are smarter than broilers, so they would go back in at night, and you could move it a long ways, and so long as they came out of it, they wouldn't go too far and they'd get back in it. Problem I had with that was we would always have a couple of chickens that would say, oh, there's the barn. I think I want to go to the barn. And they would come up to the barn. And then the next day there'd be 2 of them that would come up to the barn. The next day there'd be 3. And then it was sort of like the the hanging tomato plants. It's like, well, there's only 3 of them out. You can't catch the stupid things unless you want to make major production out of it, and you're trying to work and there's 3 chickens out, and I'm just not gonna do it. I'll wait till the sun goes down. Next day, I guess I'll get them tonight. Next day, I guess I'll get them tonight. And meanwhile, they're sitting on the windshield of my Ford pickup, crapping on the windshield. So I just didn't like that. It was like a loose end that was always failing for me. And so I said, well, we're just gonna do it the old-fashioned way. So we built a great big pen, I would say 20 by 30, and put 50 chickens in it, and that's where they are. It's maximum security, don't let them out. And we cut a lot of grass, and we put grass in there, so we have nice looking eggs. I don't sell eggs. I trade some off once in a while, but the eggs mostly are for the house. But I didn't need the extra work of that mobile, laying chicken thing. So what I am gonna do is I'm gonna marry up the grow field technology I do with pigs, which is sort of stuff that I learned from grazing, excuse me, with the chicken, the laying chicken grazing. So the pen that I have, it does not have a door that's big enough for me to get in there with my rototiller. So I'm gonna build a new door on that so I can get in there with the rototiller, and I wanna be able to till that up. And then I wanna build an additional pen that I can also till, and then I can grow things in there. There's things that grow really fast, like field turnips or field radishes. They pop up in about a week when it's warm. And my field right out there now is they're up a foot. And they really grow well. And that's excellent forage for your chickens. And as your chickens are out there eating, they're manuring, so your ground out there, instead of getting hard packed and non-organic and stinky, the turnips are breaking it up, or the radishes are breaking up. You do turnips too. It's just that the chickens wouldn't eat the turnips, I don't think. Radishes, I think they will, because they're red on the top. And you're getting produce out of it, and it's produce that your chickens can eat. And every radish that they eat is, 2 ounces of chicken feed that they're not going to eat. So if you can economize on the feed that you're feeding your chickens, and you're actually getting your eggs at half price, then you're gaining more. And there is a free lunch. Plus, your feeds from, say, the mill or whatever, they're not always safe, And if you can cut the feeds from the mill, that's what you should do. Excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat. Did I answer that question? I forgot what the question was.
Chicken coop plans.
Oh, chicken coop plans. Yeah, my new chicken coop, I've got an old grain bin that's probably 10 feet across and probably 8 feet high. It's steel, and I'm gonna adapt it up, put it right next to my other grain bin. Only thing, there's not gonna be grain in it, there's gonna be chickens in it. We're gonna use that as sort of like I want something that we can walk into and get the eggs. The one that I have now, you access it from the outside and it's small, but it got kind of messy inside, and it's so small in there. It's plenty of room for chickens, but it's not enough room for me to get in with a fork and get it cleaned out. So there you go. I'll bring you up to speed on that as that progresses. I am working hard this year at finishing things and not starting anything before I finish things, And so some projects I've said, well, not going to do it this year. I mean, I'd like to, but just not going to. But right now I'm in good shape. I have everything planted that I needed to plant, and I got a lot of maintenance done. We did put in a pool for the kids this year, just an above ground, pool. And that is going to save us a ton of time, because when it's hot, we're running to the lake so much just to cool off. So we'll just be able to duck into our own pool. That'll be great. If there's nothing else, let's talk about Hidden Creek.
Go for it.
All right. I'm going to assume nothing here. Hidden Creek Farm is down in Muskegon County, and they were ordered by their township to cease and desist their farm operation. Here in Michigan, we have what's called the Right to Farm Act, which is a law. And the township cited ordinances that they make up, and told them that they had to stop their farming operation. And they came to us, and we activated the Alliance. It's just a loose organization of other farmers that have also dealt with heavy-handed local governments and state governments. And now we know a little bit more how things work, and we all chipped in a little bit, whether it was effort or money or time, and it was a tremendous effort. So, what I asked folks to do was to call the Dalton Township office and take up their time. Ask them questions. Why are you trying to put this farm out of business? Every single time they said, we are not suing them to put them out of business. I don't have the lawsuit here. It's down on my desk. But if they had won the lawsuit, they would have put the farm out of business. It's an 18-acre farm. Jill and I went there. Really nicely done. And it's also certified through the Department of Agriculture as environmentally safe. It's called GAMPS, Generally Accepted Farm Practices. And they went through that whole process, which is quite lengthy. And they were certified. And what happened was the neighbor complained about cars parking out on the road during a plant sale. And so the neighbor went to the township, and then the township sued them as well. And they shut down their Mother's Day plant sale, successfully shut that down. They got an injunction from a judge, which I travesty actually. And the township maintains that you can do it, but you have to ask us. And if we decide we're going to let you, you got to pay us $50 for permission to do it. And so round and round we go with the township. I don't think the township has the authority to tell a citizen that owns property that wants to do something legal on their property. I don't think they should have to ask. I don't think they need to ask permission to do that. They don't need to ask permission. We're free people living in a free country. But if you go and ask permission, somebody's going to say no because nobody wants to. Anyway, this has gone on for a month, and Monday was the township meeting. And we put the call out there for people to go to the township meeting and to start some inquiries. We want to know what's going on. Why is the township wasting money on this? There's no way they're going to win. The Right to Farm Act clearly is in favor of these people's farming operation. Their name is Lee and Crystal, and the name of the farm is Hidden Creek Farm. And that's why you should go there and buy one of these, right? Because the proceeds are going to go to them. They've lost a lot of revenue due to their government. And I know what that's like. I dealt with the state government here for years, and I can tell you they have their ways. That's how they do it. I mean, they starve you out is what they do. So the township, instead of going to these people and saying, hey, we got a neighbor that's irritated about the cars on the road, they just went to a lawyer and said, sue them. And so they did. And the farm is forced at that point to go and get a lawyer, because if you don't have a lawyer, the judge wouldn't allow them to represent themselves. That's a new one on me. I don't know if that's, he said because they're an LLC, they can't represent themselves. I don't know about that, but we're seeing this all over the country. There's such stark consistency with this heavy-handedness against small farms that it kind of makes you wonder. And so we have done a little bit of inquiring. I'd like some questions on this, by the way. I'd like some engagement on this, if you don't mind, because this really needs to come to a screeching halt. And let me explain. I'll explain my thought on this. But we are seeing a lot of this going on, and I don't think there's any reason for it to continue. And here is why. With my experiences, I found out, without a shadow of a doubt, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the United States Constitution is the supreme law of the land. And we found this out through a series of questions to the Attorney General in our state, who was in effect, suing me to get rid of my pigs because the Department of Agriculture said that my pigs could be detrimental to the safety of the environment and everything else, because they said you can't contain pigs, you know. You can't contain pigs outside. They all need to be in a confinement operation. So, we questioned the Attorney General about whether or not the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Now, supreme means nothing comes before it. So you have county ordinances. Does the Constitution supersede or trump those ordinances? Well, the answer to that is absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. And if those ordinances are repugnant to the Constitution, then you have no reason to even listen to them because you haven't broken a law, and so there's absolutely no way they can come after you except with nefarious means. And in this case, they did. They hired a lawyer. The lawyer made some changes to a document. Boom, he has a lawsuit, ran it through the court, and then had it delivered to these people. Most people, when they get it, would say, oh, I don't want a lawsuit. I'll pay my $50 and I'll get a permit to have a plant sale on my place. You know, but these guys said, no, it's my property. Why should I ask you guys permission? If I give you $50 for a permit, what are you doing for me? What am I getting for my $50? So they wouldn't do it, which good on them. So, I believe that the Fifth Amendment covers this. The Fifth Amendment says that your life, liberty, and property is protected under due process of law. There is no law saying you can't have a sale on your property to sell plants that you've created. There are ordinances, you know, township ordinances, but where do those ordinances come from? And last time I checked in the United States, we are governed by consent. When did you ever consent to those ordinances? I don't remember that happening. So, and not only that, an ordinance that says you can't farm here because the line is right here and you live on this side of the line, how does that line up with the Fifth Amendment? Are those zoning lines, are they laws? Were they made lawfully? I don't know. Let's get an answer to these questions. So that's why the township meeting was Monday, and we asked people to go there and voice their concerns. And a lot of people have called the office. A lot of people went to the meeting. And so I guess here I am to report to you on what I saw at the meeting Monday night. It was from 6 to whenever it ended. And I saw some real telltale signs of Americans waking up and starting to understand that they are wearing the ruby slippers, you know. They do have power. You know, this township board, and you can watch the township meeting on Hidden Creek's Facebook page. They've got it posted there, and I recommend that you do. It's quite entertaining. The township supervisor, Tony Barnes, he is maintaining right to the end, we are not trying to sue them to put them out of business. I don't know why he's doing that, because everybody has seen the lawsuit and everybody realizes that if they won, they would be out of business, and that was what they asked them to do, was to cease and desist their farming operation. But anyway, here's what happened. 5:30, me and Jill showed up there. We thought it was important for us to be there and see what was going to go on. When we got there, the parking lot was almost full, about 30 cars. Pretty good group of people. I mean, it was, everybody wanted to shake hands and meet and talk, and it was kind of a carnival type atmosphere. I was actually having quite a bit of fun meeting people that I've talked to online, and I got to see them in person and stuff. It was really fun. Then the Fox News caster lady came over and said, could she interview me? and it was Fox News, so I figured this is probably going to be on the Bill O'Reilly show, right? Or Tucker Carlson, one of the two, or Sean Hannity, right? That'd be even better. But so I gave the interview, but while I was doing the interview, they opened the doors to the Township Hall, and everybody went in, and I was doing the interview with the Fox News gal. Turns out they never used the word that I said. They never even showed my picture. It's a conspiracy, I tell you. It is. CNN was in on this, I'm sure of it. So everybody goes into the Township Hall. They set up, it was a pretty good sized room. They had 36 seats set up in the room. They could have had twice as many, I figure. And they did not turn on the air conditioner. So that building had sat in the sun since probably 4 till 6, and they just let it be hot in there. Then they opened the windows. We got to get some air in here. And it was just full of mosquitoes. And when I turned from, Fox News, I couldn't get in. All right, and I figured, well, Jill's in there, and maybe it'd be better if I stood around out here anyway, so I can kind of keep an eye on what's going on in the parking lot and stuff, And it was kind of good because there was a bunch of other people that couldn't get in. And so we were free to talk outside, and I was able to glean a lot of information from people. I would say there was well over 100 people there. I only heard negative comments from one lady, but she was, and probably her husband or her son, but they were complaining about the people who were getting up during the public comments. So this is after Tony Barnes gave his speech about how he's just trying to look out for the safety of the public, and he's just concerned for the children and all this stuff. And meanwhile, he's saying that this is just a parking issue. Meanwhile, I made a video out in the street. People had to park on both sides of the street, and I didn't see anybody out there ticketing cars or directing traffic or anything like that. It was just a county road, and people were just parked out there. It didn't seem to be much of a concern to old Tony then. And the thing about it is they thought that Hidden Creek was in violation and creating a safety hazard by people parking out on the road. And they gauged that by all the people that said they were going to go to this plant sale on Facebook. So you know how that is. I'm going, maybe not going, whatever. Interested. And so, I don't know. It was pretty sad. But when you listen to the comments people made, your average citizen has a hard time going to a meeting like that on a weeknight, Monday night. Never mind stepping out of their comfort zone and speaking to a big audience of people that they don't know. And Tony Barnes is up there, and he's kind of he tries to intimidate people. He was cutting people off, and he was rolling his eyes, and very unprofessional, very, very snakish. And so people did make comments that were that indicated to me that they're very unhappy with the leadership there. So, and they even called for his resignation and the resignation of the trustees. And of course, they didn't resign, and they maintain that they would do it again, and that they're doing a good thing and all this stuff. And they're full of baloney. I mean, it's just totally full of baloney. Jill was in there. She got to hear the whole thing. And when we drove home that night, and I sat here and I watched the whole thing, or I listened to it actually. Now there's much better information, recordings of it, so you can watch it and hear it better. But this is what I observed. When it was over, there were about 15, 18 people that got up and spoke, and each one of them had 3-4 minutes to speak. And the township board did not respond. They didn't answer any of the questions. So I found that kind of odd. The township board, they're employees of the people of the town. They're servants, and they get paid pretty good, but they just decided, we're not going to talk. We're going to sit here and we're not going to answer your questions. Well, it's sort of like a job interview or a feedback session in a way. So the people that were in that audience, I would have been saying, you're fired. I am getting rid of you next election. So that's one of their options. I doubt any of these people are going to step down, but they are getting harassed pretty good. And usually what they'll do is they'll single out a farmer and they'll just hammer that one guy, and the guy's got no place to go. I mean, you can't. Who are you going to go to? You know. But this time, the alliance kind of swooped in, and they had to deal with a bunch of people, and a bunch more people have gotten turned onto it now, and then you're getting turned onto it because this isn't the last we've heard of this. So the township did offer a resolution, and we have seen it. And I don't know as it's public document at this point, so I'm not going to comment on it. But the township backed up, and they backed up fast, and they kind of want to make it all go away. Here's the problem I have with that, and this is the point of what I'm saying, is the township attempted to subvert the Fifth Amendment rights that these people have to their life, liberty, and property. They attempted to do that. And they did that under the color of law, right? They made these young people think that, well, we make the law around here. We're the law. You know, do this or we're going to take you to court. Do this or we're going to have you arrested. And they didn't represent themselves correctly to these citizens. That's against the law. That is against the law. And they got caught, and the alliance engaged, and we called them on it. We flooded their office with a lot of phone calls, and now they know if this does go to court, there's going to be 3 times as many people there. They know that. And now they want to back out. I have a problem with that. Here's why I have a problem with that. Let's say that I make an attempt to rob the bank down in town. And I take the lady at gunpoint and I say, open up that safe. She opens it up, but there's no money in there. Just then the cops show up and I say, well, there's no money. This gun's registered. Are they going to let me go? No, I attempted a very heinous crime. So what could be worse than a servant trying to steal something from their master? And what is more precious than our God-given rights to our life, our liberty, our freedom, and our property? What is more precious than that? Is it more precious than the dollars that are in that safe down at the bank that I tried to rob? I would say so. Your life, your freedom, and your property. Let's say that your property, being your process, is that you're a farmer. How many people have tried farming and said, whoa, this ain't for me. I'm out. It's too hard. But the ones of us that stay in it, it becomes a passion. It becomes a part of your life. Very much a part of your life. And then you have this punk township group of punks that want to take that away from you because they say so. Based on nothing. Do you see how wrong that is? And do you see how, in this case, it's these people, but next time, conspiracy, I tell you. Next time, it could be you. Next time, it could be you. So this is serious business. This is very serious business. Oh, they just want to shut down a little farm. Oh, yeah? What if it was your little farm? What if you had poured your heart and soul into it for 5 years, like these people have? So they're 28 years old. They started it when they were, I don't know, do the math. You know, I know what 5 from 8 is. All right. But they started at a very young age, very idealistic at it. and they've done very well. And this township wants to take it from them based on a lie. That's very bad. Dalton Township really needs to get rid of those people. And you need to get people in there that, number one, are going to be able to answer questions about the Constitution. I talked to Tony Barnes on the phone. He called me first. And I said to him, what is it about the Constitution that bothers you? And he says, well, you know, the Constitution is it's a living, breathing document. What the hell does that mean? That means he can make it whatever he wants. But that's not what the Constitution is. The Constitution is etched in stone. There's a lot of people that don't like parts of the Constitution, like this right here. This is free speech. I can do this in this country. Try this in Bolivia. Try to speak like this in Bolivia about your government. You won't make it till the next sunrise. You won't. But here you can, because free speech is protected, right? When we get to the Fourth Amendment, that is your property. No one can come on your property. Your papers are safe. Your effects are safe, unless there is a warrant or you allow somebody to come on your property. So, with that said, let's talk about homesteading and how you're going to want to conduct yourself if you're not going to be a commercial person. Because inevitably you're going to have somebody say, well, don't you have to get a license to do this if you're going to butcher chickens on your own property or butcher beef on your own property? No, you don't. It's your process. Your life, your liberty, your property, which is also your process, protected under due process of law. Is there a law out there that says you cannot process chickens unless we say so? No, but there are agencies that will say that. And they happen to have a letterhead that says State of Michigan, but that does not mean they are government. And that does not mean everything they say is reality. If you want to process a chicken for your family, it's the same as if you want to process some raspberries for your family, or if you want to cut hay and store it in your barn. It's your process. Now, it does a little bit different if you want to process a chicken and then sell it to a restaurant. That's a little different. They require oversight on that. And I actually get that. That is their court. That is their field. That is their game. But for you homesteaders, I would say, why would you even want to do that? If you're going to sell to restaurants, you have to keep your prices so low that they can add 30% to it to make their margin. And you'll feel real good about your chickens being sold in a restaurant. No. If you're going to sell them for what it costs plus your profit that you need. And you can maintain a customer base right on your little notepad. And before you know it, you're going to have people beating your door down for fresh chickens, fresh beef, fresh pork, whatever. And none of this has to go through any of the process that's required to go to restaurants or retail stores or farmers markets. Stay away from farmers markets. They're a real pain. You're better off having people come to you and buying directly off your farm. Now, you may have people that would say, well, is that legal? Well, absolutely it's legal. And when you transfer dollars for products on your farm, it's between you and another citizen. There is no middleman in there of somebody that claims to be government. So you can do this. And if what I'm saying is not correct, I'm sure I would hear about it, you know. They would definitely be breathing down my neck about this, but I did away with all my licenses a year ago last May, when I realized that having a license from a government agency or a pseudo-government agency like Department of Agriculture, it's a contract that you're making with them. You go to them and say, hey, I'd like to have a license so I can sell to these retail stores. The retail stores has an agreement with them too that you can only buy from licensed growers. And I can only sell to them if I have a license. When I get that license, I have to read the fine print and sign here and pay my money. The fine print says that they can inspect my product anytime they want and my process anytime they want. They never did, in my case. It was always just send in the money. until I started being a pain for them, and then they wanted to inspect, and then, you know, that's the time when they're gonna come in and they're just gonna nitpick everything and put you out of business. So you do away with the licenses, you have no contract with them, no authority, they have no authority. They could try it, but if they come up the driveway and I have not invited them, or they do not have a warrant, they're gonna turn around and go back, right? That's just the way it is. That's what the Fourth Amendment is, and that's what the Fifth Amendment is. And that is the supreme law of the land. And I've hit the press the test button on this, so I know what I'm talking about. All right. One other observation at the end of this meeting. When it ended, people came out, and I was noticing a lot of smiling faces. Still kind of a carnival atmosphere. People milled around outside of the township building, probably 3/4 of the crowd. Some people just, you know, had to go, but a lot of people wanted to stand around and talk. I saw a lot of smiling faces. I was observing the crowd very closely because I wanted to know what people's true feeling was about this. And there was a very good feeling there. People were happy. One thing that was missing from this crowd that was noticeable was fear. There was no fear. No one was afraid of the people that they had just confronted in that township meeting. Township people, on the other hand, they got the hell out of Dodge quick. And those were the ones I was watching. They jumped in their cars and they were gone. Low battery. And the ones that I was able to observe, they had their heads down, and you could tell that there was a problem because they got beat up pretty good in that meeting. And I think they realized that they're all going to be out of jobs here pretty quick. Now, what does that mean? You know, when you see a bunch of people, the citizenry, that seem to be in a carnival atmosphere, very happy, not afraid of anything. And then you see the government people seem to be not very happy and possibly like, I got to get out of here. They didn't want to come and meet with the people outside of the official atmosphere. Hey, and not sitting behind their desks and their microphones and their little nameplates. So that tells me something, and it should tell you something too. And I'm going to quote Thomas Jefferson here. When the people fear their government, you have tyranny. When the government fears their people, you have liberty. And that's what I witnessed the other night. When you have 100 people show up, and then there's 7 people here that are trying to run this operation of putting these people out of business, they were totally outnumbered. And they live in that community. Now, who wants to live in a community where you're working an agenda that is making everybody mad at you? You don't. And that's the way it's designed. It's a government of the people and by the people. And it's designed that way because the old system was the rules and regs were coming from across the Atlantic from King George, you know, in England. And we didn't like that. That's what the Declaration of Independence is all about. So this is sort of the same thing taking over again. And we have to thwart this at every turn. We are free people. This is a representative republic. We're not a democracy. It's a representative republic, and we're governed by a constitution, right? The Constitution gives the average people power. These township ordinances gives this very small group of people power. And their ordinances do not stand up against your constitutional rights. Talking with a buddy of mine today, and I said to him, you know, maybe I didn't plan on doing all the talking here. Maybe we should not refer to these rights as constitutional rights. because they're really not constitutional rights. They are human rights, and they are enumerated in the Constitution. Little story, and then I'm going to take some questions here. Are there some questions?
No.
No, there are no questions about this?
Although folks are welcome to ask.
Yeah, please ask some question. When this started and Hidden Creek received this paperwork, there was 3 lawsuits. There was one from the neighbor, there was one from the township, and then there was an injunction request from the township to shut down their plant sale, Mother's Day plant sale. And they cited, safety. You don't have a good parking area. We got to shut this down. Oh, Lone Star, look at you, $50. Look at that.
Do you see his
Oh,
question?
did that go to Hidden Creek? No.
No.
But let me finish this. If I can. So they got these 3 sets of paperwork. You know what? I lost my train of thought. Okay. I was getting wound up. So give me that question,
Yeah, so he's wanting this to help Hidden Creek Farm fight back against the heavy-handed organizations. So we'll do that, Lone Star. Thank you. What is the plan forward? Does Hidden Creek have enough room for parking on their own place?
Absolutely. See, this is a travesty what's going on. We have a government in place right now. And things are changing, and I realize that. This Dalton Township is a microcosm of what has got Americans so irritated and so disrespectful of their government. We have a government that wants to go to war. They always want conflict, and it always seems to result in austerity. All right, so here's these kids trying to make a living on their farm, trying to feed themselves and pay their mortgage. And this township is saying, nope, can't do that. And trying to put them out of business. War, austerity. See, they didn't roll over to their house and say, hey, how can we fix this? How can we fix this? No, they went right to a lawyer and sued them, right? War. They declared war. And then it would result in austerity. Why couldn't we have a government that declares peace, that seeks peace, and instead of austerity, prosperity? Is there like a law of nature that prevents that from happening? Is it human nature that prevents that from happening? No, because the people that I talk to outside the township hall, they're scratching their head like there's got to be more to the story than this. It can't be what you're saying is true, Mark. It can't be. The township would never do that if there wasn't a good reason. But then they went in there and they heard Tony Barnes go on and on and on, and people saw through his baloney and came out saying, wow, what's wrong with these people? See, for too long, we have drawn the wrong people into leadership, right? The wrong people. I would much rather have a guy that takes a break, a 4-year break from his successful business, goes into leadership, and brings to that leadership position an air of, I want to help you guys be successful too. Goes to Hidden Creek and says, hey, you know what? This is a great operation. But if you were to do this, this, and this, you could increase your sales, increase your profits, da-da-da-da-da. No. These guys that are in leadership in Dalton Township, they're parasites. They're all losers. They don't have anything going. That's why they have to have this government job. They're not out here in the real world creating wealth on their own. They are relying on the money that's taken from wealth creators, right? Completely wrong. And I'm not saying that all townships are like that. I complimented my township here. Actually, there's some pretty sharp individuals that see their service to the town as a duty and not something to make a little extra money, you know. And they're pretty efficient people. They're very efficient people, actually. They run things really, really well here. You know, if there's ever a problem and you ask them about it, you usually get a pretty good response about, oh, this is why we did it. We could either go this way or this way, and this one was the better way to go. Yeah, fair enough. Good. Thanks. Glad you're doing this. Not this outfit. This outfit's bad. And I think where I was going before when I lost my train of thought is when it comes to tyranny like this, which is what it is, they're saying, you do it our way because we say so. We have an obligation as citizens to push back against this. And I was proud of the people that showed up at Dalton Township offices Monday night, because there was 100 people there pushing back. They figure when you get people to go out like that, each person represents about 10 people, concerned people. Okay? So if we extrapolate that out, we had a lot of people there. So we have the option of, you know, the farm could take the offer that the township has made. They could say, nope, let's go to court. We want a jury, you know, and then a bunch of stuff can be read into the record about the lawlessness of the township. That's the way I would like to see it go. Or, you know, they could, I don't know what they're going to do. They have options, and that's up to them. But to this point, I would consider this operation a complete success, because we've seen the citizenry move and say, no, not going to do this to us. And all it took really was just not watching Jeopardy on Monday night and driving down there and sitting in the audience and maybe get up and say what you think. Not that hard, but it has a tremendous impact. I guarantee that they are being very careful right now what they do and what they say. Everything that goes on the phone, it's not friendly. It's not. So good on you guys that came, and we need definitely more of that. Do you have a question?
Someone, Laurel, wanted to know, are they still in mediation with the lawyers, or are they going forward with the lawsuit? What about the neighbor's suit?
The neighbor's suit, I'll address that first, kind of rides under the wings of the township suit. See, the township has money that they have a lawyer on retainer, and he just sits there waiting for them to say, sick 'em, boy, and he does. I think he's just he's a lawyer for hire. He could work for either side. You know, he gets paid by the hour. But they are using public funds to hire him and use him against the people in the township. Now, is that always incorrect? No, not always. But in this case, it's very incorrect. I mean, there's not a law being broken here. There is ordinances that they seem to think trump the law, which is the right to farm, and the Fifth Amendment. And they don't. And these township people should have said, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Neighbor, but there's nothing we can do. If the township drops its lawsuit, in other words, if they take the deal that the township's offering, which I wouldn't, but if they do, then the lawsuit goes away, it weakens the neighbor's lawsuit, for sure. He doesn't have a leg to stand on right now, because the Right to Farm Act protects farms from frivolous nuisance lawsuits. And that's what he's claiming. He's claiming that they're a nuisance. He says that their farm stinks and that the traffic is a safety problem and all that stuff. And I can tell you, they have parking on the farm. If people choose to park in the road, that is a motorist's prerogative where they're going to park. It's not the farm's problem. Like, if I'm going to go to Walmart, let's say, but I decide I'm going to park at the gas station and walk over, that's me. That's not Walmart. So it's ridiculous. It is very, very, very ridiculous what's going on. And yes, they have room on their place that if they needed to put in more parking, it's an 18-acre farm. They could put in more parking. But when I went there, I parked my van right in front of this sign that said parking. And it seemed to be like there was 20 spaces that way and 20 that way, or 10 and 10. So I don't think that they're having a huge number of people show up there at any one time. And if they are, is it illegal to park on the road? Answer, no. If it was, the cops would be out there ticketing the cars. And they weren't. And if people park on the road, that's not the farm's problem. It's like if you have a graduation party and people park on the road, sorry, that's where they just decided to park. It's not. So it was really dumb. Was that the only part of the question, or was there a little bit more?
No, that's the only part of the question. Lone Star wanted to know if Hidden Creek is safe.
Yeah. One of the benefits the Alliance has provided here is a lot of exposure. So, yeah, they're safe. And we know people in that township that know deputy sheriffs in that area, and they all think it's crazy too. And Dalton Township has a real reputation, this crew, for being tyrannical like this. So I believe they're safe. I don't think there's a problem. I don't think it's got to that point. But I'll tell you, I stayed outside the other night just because I wanted to keep an eye on what was going on in the parking lot. And, you know, if my wife was going to be inside, I wasn't going to be sitting in that room and get surprised. So I was outside and I had my head on a swivel because I'm just like that. Was that the only question? Okay. Well, I appreciate everybody coming.
Oh, did just want to mention thank you to Lone Star for supporting our channel tonight, and
Yeah.
so we can bring this information and educate people between farming and what it takes to farm these days.
Okay.
And we'll
Hey,
pass
Lone
that
Star,
on to
yeah, we'll
Hidden
pass
Creek
that
as
on
well.
to Hidden Creek for sure. We'll make sure that that goes to them. I really appreciate that. I appreciate everybody getting involved. This is really what it takes. Like I said, in this case, these wolves picked out two very young people and hammered them. Now, and they expected that they would just capitulate because they're young people and they don't know the ins and outs of things. Now, here's why this happened. Okay, this is gonna bring you up to speed and show you that every move you make has a long-term effect. Have you ever heard the parable about the butterfly when it flaps its wings? That in 20 years' time, that disturbance of the air is multiplied so many times that it makes a difference. Okay, when Jill and I went through our thing, it was at this very table that we sat here. We knew that the Department of Natural Resources was out of line saying that we had to depopulate our pigs because they friggin' said so, right? We knew they were out of line. And we had to make a decision. Are we going to do it or are we going to fight them? And we had no idea what we were in for, but we made the decision to fight them because I am someone that has taken an oath to protect and defend the Constitution. And if I don't defend it, who will, right? If not me, who? And if not now, when, right? So we made the decision to stand against them. Because we did, a lot of people watched that and said, huh, maybe I could do that too. And this young couple was one of those people that watched the process that we went through. And I will tell you what happened. She was summoned to the township office, and she was taken behind closed doors with 3 strangers. And I mean, they closed the door and they tried to get her to capitulate. Say, you know, you can't be farming and you can't have this plant sale. And by the way, you got to get a special land use permit to do something on your own property. She got emotional. She started crying. I understand that. And she knew she didn't belong there and excused herself and left. And then she called me. And I'm glad she did. But she wouldn't have if she didn't know who I was. And she wouldn't have known who I was if we hadn't have made a stand against the same type of stuff, right? So let's say you're Lone Star. This didn't happen to you, but you just coughed up 50 bucks. Good on you. You've done your duty. And everybody else that's heard this, it hasn't happened to you. So what can you do? And are you willing to do it? Are you willing to defend your constitutional rights? Are you willing to defend your rights as a human being that are enumerated in the Constitution? Are you willing to do it? Or are you going to wait till you get pushed against the wall? No, I say you do it now. And I say now is the time to do it, because these bad guys, these wolves in sheep's clothing, these wolves, Tony Barnes and the rest of them down there, they're on the run. So now is the time to bear down on them, right? And don't let them up. They're wolves. They take advantage of the sheep. And if you can find that sheepdog in you, now is the time. What do? You call the office and you say, I'd like an explanation. You ring the phones. There's another thing that's very important that we've done a lot of, and it's called a FOIA request, Freedom of Information Request. Freedom of Information Act. And if you don't know what that is, it was passed into law in I'm not exactly sure, 94 or 74, I'm not sure, right? Doesn't matter, it's a law now. It means all communique in government offices, we, the masters of the public servants, are privy to every bit of it. There are some exceptions, you know, grand jury testimony, things like that, that would implicate citizens that we do not need to know about. Some of it we are not privy to, but something like this, we are privy to everything that goes on in that township office. Even if I don't live in that township office, if I request all how much money they made in 2017 on special use permits, which to me, it just boggles my mind. You own a piece of property, but you want to do something on your property, and you got to go to them and ask, can I? And they say, yeah, pay your 50 bucks. I don't get that. I mean, you own the property. If you're not doing something illegal, why do you need a special use permit on your own property? It just blows my mind. But if you request that via FOIA request, they have 5 days to get that to you. They must under the law. But you know, this township has refused to honor FOIA requests. So they're in a lot of hot water over that. You can't do that. It is a law that they have to make that information available to the public. So we wanted to know all the communique that went on about Hidden Creek. So it's very simple. They have to do a search of everything. Every meeting that they have to take notes. It's required that they have to memorialize those meetings, and they have to be detailed. That's part of the job. And when we request that, they have to, by law, make that available to whoever requests it. And if it's going to benefit the public, they have to do it at no expense to the public. They haven't done that. They've coughed up a few things, but other things they don't want to. See, the Alliance here is not really interested as much in the farm being able to continue on only. The Alliance wants to see that the people that attempted to subvert these constitutional rights be held accountable. That's what the Alliance wants to see. Why? Because if there's no accountability, the next township will do the same thing. We have 2 other townships right now that are doing the same type of thing. And why do they get away with it? Because nobody holds them accountable. So why shouldn't they? You know? Why does a wolf steal a young sheep from a ewe? Because he can. Because he can. They don't care about the law. They just want to get what they want. So who are they accountable to? That begs the other question I thought somebody would ask. Where does this master plan come from? Whose plan is this? Is this just the township? Why do all the township's plans look very similar? Shouldn't they all be different if you have different people? I mean, you have Aunt Clara here and you have Aunt B over here. Shouldn't they have different plans? Why do all the plans look the same? It's a good question. Deserves an answer. All right. This is where I get myself into trouble when I start ranting too much and had too much coffee. So I think I'm going to sign off. I appreciate everybody coming by. We will see you next week at 8 o'clock. And please remember, Lone Star. He's calling me sheriff. You know, it's funny that you bring that up. I know why you did that, because you wanted me to get going. We have 83 counties in the state of Michigan. That means we have 83 county sheriffs. They should all be autonomous. Should be. But they have the Sheriff's Association. So they're kind of all on the same page. Why is it the sheriff of Muskegon County, who knows darn well this is going on, who took an oath to protect and defend the constitutional rights of the citizens of Muskegon County, why is he not climbing up Tony Barnes's in his face? Why is he not doing that, saying, hey, what do you think you're doing here? This citizen belongs to me. I am responsible for this citizen. I am here to protect them from dirtbags like you that try to subvert their constitutional rights. Why is that not happening? It's a good question. That's a real good question. Maybe I should call and have a talk with the sheriff. I can tell you one thing, if I was the sheriff, it would not be happening. It would not be happening.
They need an oath reminder.
Yeah, they need
From
an
Homestead.
oath. They took an oath to protect and defend. That is their requirement for employment. That is their term of employment, is to protect and defend. It's the oath that they took. And they don't seem to be very up on that, you know. So I am going to get off now, because this is when I get going, and I may misspeak about something that I'll be held accountable for later. Tough. All right, so this is Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. And you remember, anyone can farm. Get out there and do your duty. Thank you.